Behind the Tea Party, a research PowerPoint by Brody Henning. Today I'm going to talk about how the Boston Tea Party helped spark the 13 colonies' pursuit of liberty and the right of representation, leading to the American Revolution. Numerous events led to the Boston Tea Party. These incidents include a growing anti-tax sentiment, as the colonists believed that Britain did not have the right to tax them without their representation in Parliament, and Britain's harsh enforcement of colonial taxes, which was especially evident in Britain's troop deployment in the colonies and the passing of the Mutiny Act of 1765. The taxes that increased anti-taxation without representation included the Sugar Act of 1764, the Stamp Act of 1765, and the Townshend Acts of 1767. These taxes increased the tension between Britain and the colonies, especially when many colonists began to ignore the taxes, smuggle goods through foreign traders, protest the taxes, or hold violent demonstrations against custom officers and tax agents, including raiding their homes or threatening and sometimes carrying out tar and feathering. The British were ready to enforce the colonial taxes. The severity of the punishment depended on the location of the colonies. In the colonies, many colonists were imprisoned for violating the acts. Others were heavily fined. With the passing of the Townshend Acts of 1767, tax agents were given the ability to search any building to lessen smuggling. Many colonists were outraged because these searches were illegal in Great Britain. The British government began to station troops in urban centers of the colonies in the name of peace. The Quartering Acts of 1765 and 1774 implemented and secured this troop deployment. With tensions rising, major events began to take place. These included the raiding of tax agent Andrew Oliver's house and the hanging of his effigy, the ransacking of Massachusetts Lieutenant Governor Thomas Hutchinson's house, which was later regretted by the Patriots since Hutchinson was against the Stamp Act, and the Boston Massacre. This occurred when British troops in Boston opened fire on a crowd that was throwing rock and ice-filled snowballs at them. The last straw that led to the Boston Tea Party was the Tea Act of 1773. This tax was implemented to enable the struggling East India Company to sell goods cheaply and directly to the colonies, bypassing American traders. The Tea Party was the Sons of Liberty's answer to the first shipment of tea to the colonies under the new act. A group of Bostonian men dressed as Mohawk warriors boarded the 3 dock ships carrying the tea. These quote-unquote Indians divide themselves into 3 groups, one for each ship. For 3 hours, the raiders dumped tea into the harbor. One raider was knocked unconscious by a piece of equipment used to lift the chest of tea, but other than that, there were no other injuries during the event. Interestingly, no one tried to stop the Patriots. In response to the Boston Tea Party, the British government implemented what the colonists began calling the Intolerable Acts. These acts closed Boston's port until the city or patriots indemnified the East India Company. They also transferred Massachusetts Assembly's power to a royally appointed governor and sent British troops to occupy Boston. Parliament also passed the Quartering Act of 1774, allowing British troops to be lodged in private homes. The British had expected the insurrection to be limited to Massachusetts and primarily Boston. However, as news about these acts spread throughout the colonies, it created colonial unity in support of Boston and the boycott of British goods. Massachusetts began training its militia for its defense against a possible British takeover of the colony. Then, on September 5, 1774, 53 delegates from every colony except Georgia met to create a list of grievances against King George III and pledged to stand united if force was used against Massachusetts. Massachusetts, a royally appointed governor, Thomas Gage, expected the Massachusetts militia to attempt to take back Boston. To prevent this, Gage decided to send troops to destroy the ammunition stores in Concord, Massachusetts. The militia, aware of this plan, prepared for battle. As the British left Boston, messengers rode throughout the countryside to warn of the British forces' advancement. When the British reached Concord, shots were exchanged, beginning the American Revolution. In conclusion, the Boston Tea Party was the result of American defiance against British taxation without representation. The Boston Tea Party was also the perfect catalyst for the American Revolution, since it made the British overly concerned about the loyalty of the colonies and caused them to punish the colonies in new ways. These new punishments made the colonists fear that the colonies would soon be closely controlled by the British. This further led to the training of the Massachusetts militia and the British March on Concord. These are the references I used in researching my topic. Thank you.